Hi, Claire. How's your weekend
So
going?
it's going pretty well.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me today. We wanted to chat a little bit about your experience with JEI, the Journal of Emerging Investigators. Could you tell me how you got involved to start?
Sure. So I'm a graduate student at Duke University, and my lab was part of the Duke Human Vaccine Institute, and they have a training and mentoring program that sends out like a weekly newsletter kind of thing with upcoming events and opportunities. And another JEI volunteer had given information about JEI to the person who sends that newsletter out. And that's where I saw it and jumped at the opportunity.
What
And that
appealed to you
was,
about it right away? Go ahead.
yeah, that was about 2 years ago in October 2019. And I was particularly excited about it because JEI sort of hits like two major, like, I guess, professional development opportunities for trainees in research. The first is, of course, we're working as like editors and reviewers, and that is just hugely beneficial experience for anyone who's interested in going into, really any career in science, but particularly academia, where you're asked to review manuscripts for professional journals.
Mhm.
And the second is outreach. We're working with middle and high school age students who are, for the most part, doing their first, experience with science and the scientific writing process and publishing. And I think it's really cool to be able to work with kids at sort of a younger age and get them, interested in science, and hopefully like empower them to pursue science as a career as they're headed into college.
That's awesome. Do you remember the first paper you reviewed?
Uh, I no.
That's okay.
Yeah, I actually
What
looked.
was the most memorable? Which one really sticks out in your mind as being the most interesting or the most challenging, or the one you had to give the most feedback on?
I don't remember like any particular one super specifically. I guess there was one that looked at like something related to like glioblastoma and like a particular like cytokine as sort of a potential like therapeutic kind of thing. But of course, it's like cytotoxicity assays and very simple things that, high school students can do in the lab. But my department has a lot of glioblastoma labs. And so that one sort of stuck out to me because I was like, oh, hey guys, there's this interesting paper that came across my desk recently. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, they kind of run together, because I actually recently looked back at like sort of my logs of what I've worked on, and I did copy editing for like 79 manuscripts
Wow, that's a lot.
so far in my time here, which isn't even like coming close to what some other people have done. So um so yeah, it's a lot, but they I don't know. I have been very impressed with the level of professionalism that I see
Yeah.
sometimes in these manuscripts. And I mean, particularly with students who do like computational work, because there's really no limit to what you can do with a computer. Because, with like biology and like other types of science, you're really limited by like what you can buy with your supplies and things like that, which is a huge limitation for younger students. But for people who are doing computational studies, like there's just no limit, and I've seen some really cool things. So
That's amazing. So you've been involved for two and a half years?
mhm.
And during that amount of time, you've provided quite a bit of mentorship to students by giving them feedback and reviewing their papers. What are some of the things that you've received from it? Like what are some of the benefits or the opportunities or the growth opportunities you've received?
Yeah, so I mean, I think for me, it's mostly been like experience in terms of like critically evaluating someone's writing and their science, but also like sort of in a way teaching. Although the way that we interact with students is mostly written communication, right? Our comments on their manuscripts or like edits in their document for copy editing. And I think it's been great because I've really learned like sort of the best ways to communicate. Like, here's this change that I suggest that you make, and here's why. Or like, here's a problem that I'm seeing, here's a suggestion for how to fix it. As opposed to just like, this is the change that you need to make and like no other context or information. And I think that's something that is maybe a little different than like more, I guess, professional writing, because a lot of times you don't get that like explanation on top of reviews and edits in like the professional editing process at other journals.
Have you recommended anyone to join the JEI team? Do you have any
yes
students? Yeah.
I have tried my best to get JEI's name out there for like other graduate students, both at Duke and I'm currently visiting at Weill Cornell. And so I've tried to spread the word up here too. And I think it's been pretty successful, like getting, JEI on some newsletters and things like that. But surprisingly, I haven't had as much luck, talking to like my friends and being like, hey, like, this is a great opportunity. But I think people just, it's sort of like what you're interested in, because it seems like a lot of the JEI volunteers are people who are interested in science communication as a potential career. Although there are a lot of people who are, academic research track folks as well.
So there's some training videos and there's a test that you have to take. And you have to get at least an 80% score on the test, correct?
Correct.
When you took the test, did you feel like it helped to prepare you for the work you were going to do?
Yeah, I think it's been a while. So I don't totally remember all that was on it, but I think it does sort of help you put things sort of in like the mindset and gets you acquainted with the expectations of the role that you're about to start. I do think that we could improve the upfront training materials, and that's something that like Kari and I are currently working on. And the implementation of those training videos is something that's pretty new, so hopefully that's helping as well. But yeah, I think it's just we want to get people, thinking in terms of like, these are kids and you have to, give your feedback with an encouraging tone and things like that. And that's something that like I've tried to stress with the training video that I made personally and some of the other things that we're currently doing. But I think there's a lot of like learning on the job as well. I remember reaching out to the head copy editor who trained me a lot and just asking her questions and being like, hey, like, how do you navigate like editorial manager? Because the platform that we use for our manuscript submissions is a little bit glitchy sometimes and not totally user friendly all the time. So definitely, I mean, if you're asking for like advice on like for new volunteers, like definitely don't be afraid to reach out to whoever you're working with and
ask for
you know,
help.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say to a student who's in 6th or 7th grade and is considering submitting something? What would be your words of encouragement or support for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like go for it, but definitely like try to do everything that you can to put your best foot forward with your submission. And the best way that you can do that is by reading our submission guide. We have a lot of information on our website that gives you pretty specific instructions for how to format your manuscript and what content needs to go in each section. And it really streamlines the process if you are familiar with those guidelines and you know exactly what needs to go in, because we don't have to like send it back to you and say this is how it needs to be. um and you'll have to change it to fit those guidelines anyway.
And do you find that it's really helpful to have a teacher involved in the process with the student, or a parent who could help them navigate some of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to tell with our manuscript submissions, like how involved the mentor is. But of course, we require an adult to submit on behalf of the students. And this is, of course, just like legal concerns. We want to be communicating with an adult whenever we're working with minors.
Yep.
But I think it is really helpful to have, an adult like reading over the material, like as you're going through your submission and checking, like, is it good grammar? Like, did you address all of the comments that you received and everything like that? So it's definitely helpful when the adult is really involved in the process. But any extra eyes that you can get on your manuscript is also helpful.
So last question, you're a busy grad student, got a lot going on with school and looking at your future. How do you fit this in around all of those other responsibilities?
I mean, I just sort of see it as part of my job. Like it's valuable to me. And so I make time for it. But it can definitely be challenging at times. But I mean, it just sort of works. Like, at least back when I was working at Duke, I had a job as a library clerk, and most of that job was just manning the desk, and you could kind of work on your own stuff during that time. And so I had like Tuesday evenings and Sunday that like was mostly designated to JEI stuff because I had all this like free quiet time. So it's just sort of a matter of like making time for it in my schedule. And I mean, a lot of times the work that I'm doing for JEI is sort of on my own time, which my boss definitely prefers.
But you can log in from anywhere, right? You can access information through the editorial manager anywhere there's an internet connection. So you could even, I mean, you probably don't do it on your phone, but anywhere you have a computer and internet, you could be reviewing a student's paper and submitting comments and etc.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for your time today, Claire.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right.